now listening to the Motown Sports Talk podcast. Now, here's your hosts, Jordan and Jimmy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Motown Sports Talk podcast. I'm your host, Jordan, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jimmy, as always. And today we've got a very special guest on this show. It's Jim Bordeau. He is the host of many, many podcasts. How are you doing, Jim?
I'm doing good. We have J3 in the building today.
Yeah, it's all J's here today.
No, I'm doing really good. I'm the host of the Detroit Sports Room and the Who's in the Room series.
Mm-hmm.
I do that. I also have the DSA Roundtable, which I host and other people host in the Detroit Sports Alliance. That is our group.
Yep.
And then I also do another show. It's called the Entrepreneurial Truth Podcast, and we talk to entrepreneurs from all over the world and see how they've got to where they are and what things have kind of held them back, or what internal and external things have held them back, and what kind of a roller coaster journey that their life has taken.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So that's basically my first question for you is, I know you kind of discussed this a little bit. You told us that it was you kind of used to listen to an old Lions podcast, some guys down in the basement who used to complain about the refs. But like, what exactly made you want to start podcasting, and when exactly did you first get into podcasting?
Well, it's a long story, and I'll try to make it short, because when I was a kid, I had one of those old tape cassette recorders, and I would, talk into it like I was talking about the weather or stuff like that. So I kind of always wanted to kind of do something like this.
Yeah.
So when a buddy of mine and me were watching a game one time, and I was listening to this podcast every week. It's called Lions in the Basement, and they would get really upset about the refs, and they'd be swearing and stuff like this and getting upset and acting like they're throwing stuff at the TV, that type of thing. And I'm like, okay, I listen to the media at that time, and I listened to press conferences stuff. I never heard anything like it. It's like, gosh, this is exactly how I feel. So I just got addicted to it. And then me and my buddy were talking after one game, and it was something that happened. I can't remember what the incident was exactly, but we just said, you know what? Why don't we sit down and record this stuff? So we did. We got microphones, and we started getting equipment and things like that. And then we built the Lions on the Prowl podcast, and that went in 2014 till recently. And when we were just the podcast, we weren't on YouTube or video or anything. So we had it was 127,000 downloads for it. We had like 6,000 for 2 weeks in a row listening to the show. So it was pretty successful.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Problem was, we were not real happy about talking about them losing every single year. I mean, year after year after year, you get really, really hyped, in the off season. Oh, we got this guy, we signed that guy, blah, 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 blah. We're going to be really good. And then we suck, like seriously, all the time.
That's a familiar feeling.
The NFC North, and it just started getting to us, and it was like we had work, and he works first shift, I worked first shift, he worked second shift, and it really got to the point where it was hard to record.
Yeah.
And so I stopped working. I started the Entrepreneurial Truth podcast last year, and then I started doing the Lions thing again, and then it just kept going from there.
Yeah.
Now, most of your podcasts are about sports. Tell me more about the Entrepreneurial Truth podcast.
Yeah.
That is a podcast that started in a West Michigan nutrition place. So we would go there in the morning before work, and I'd talk to the bosses there, and they're like, so I give them advice and stuff like that on how they could grow their business and all this other stuff. And so he's like, man, you should do a podcast on this, because I had been doing the Detroit, the sports stuff, and I did a live I did a live Lions thing from there, Lions on the Prowl, like live remote from their building and everything.
Nice.
And so as we kept talking, they're like, wow, you should interview entrepreneurs. I know this person, that person. So it just started growing. And then like, oh my goodness. So I made a Facebook group and did it. I have 102 episodes on that right now. And I still have more in the queue that I've got to get out. But
nice. It's
been a journey. I had people that have been from, wanting to commit suicide and committed to a mental hospital, and then succeeding, right? As an editor, an award-winning blog person. I had a person 23 years old that has a master's degree, at 23. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Good people that are extraordinary people that all had things in their life that tripped them up. You know what I'm saying? They all had stuff in their life that was like a wall or roadblock or something like that. For me personally, I had kidney failure in 2006.
Oh.
And so I lost both kidneys. Actually, I had like 12% function in one when I went to
Wow.
the ER. So I had to have emergency surgery, and they placed a port in me. And it was a grueling 5-day thing, and I almost died a few times. I think it's like 3 times. I was pretty close to death in that whole
Jeez.
thing. I got a transplant in 2009. And so I just have a heart for people, that go
Yeah.
through stuff. And I had one lady that I had on the show, her house burned down, and didn't get anybody in the house, thank God, but it just caused so much trauma in her life that
Yeah.
it was tough to go on. Now she builds websites for people and has her own branding, and it's like 3, 4 different businesses she's doing right now. She's doing amazing.
Yeah.
But it's all kinds of walks of life. It's all kinds of people that are just like me and you. But some of them make really good money doing things that I'm like, wow, you did what? you know.
So were you
So
an
it's fun.
entrepreneur? What was your background there?
Not really, to be honest. No, I mean, I almost force of habit because, like I said, 2006, I got the kidney failure. So between the times that I wasn't working and I was in dialysis, I would just read. I mean, that's all. You're bored for 4 hours with needles in your arms. What do you do? And I
Right.
just went and I read all the books that I could find. I read all kinds of entrepreneurial books and used that online knowledge that I learned to help like a brick and mortar business, saying, "Oh, okay, we could do this and we can help you in this way. So do you have an email list?" They're like, "What?" You know what I mean? They didn't even know what I meant. So it's like, okay, do you have a landing page? Do you have people where you can capture their email when they sign in and stuff, so you can send them the special things that you do and stuff. And how's your Facebook page, and Instagram, and do you do this and do you do that, and all those
Yeah.
things that could drum up business for them. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So just trying to help out in any way I could because they were good people, and just trying to make an honest living doing something they love to do. And it captures my heart. I'll tell you the truth. That's
Yeah.
that's more what it is.
Persevere through tough times. It's always good to hear. And like you said, it always warms your heart hearing people make it out of rough times in their life and become on to do successful thing years. Like obviously like you've come on after your kidney failure and you've done look at all this stuff you've created. So
Yeah, yeah.
so that
Oh, I
brings
see. He was answering me. He asked me that, and I do websites and I do logos for people, and it's kind of low key. I don't really talk about it a whole lot, but that's how I make a buck here and there. And I'm home full time now, which is really nice.
yeah.
So it is somewhat of a success thing, but it's not great. Entrepreneurship's kind of up and down, and it's kind of a roller coaster. Some nights, months, it's like, whoa, I did so good this month. Next month, you're crying because you have no money. But I'm just kidding.
No, I
But it
totally
is kind of
understand.
like that. It is kind of a roller coaster. Maybe that not that extreme, but
Yeah.
it is kind of that way.
Of course, you're always going to have some months that do better than others, but still, just to be able to say you're your own boss and be able to lead your own destiny.
I just got an invite to speak at the podcast movement event this year.
Oh,
So
wow.
I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, wow, that's cool. I don't know. I don't know yet if I'm going to do it or not, but it was an opportunity that I thought was just huge in my life.
Yeah.
Just that's like, who am I? And they're
Yeah.
they're asking me. I'm like, wow, that's cool.
Exactly. I mean, hey, that's an awesome honor, no matter who it is, to be recognized by by other people in your field. That's an awesome thing.
Yeah.
So that brings up my next question, though. How exactly did you get everyone involved in the Detroit Sports Alliance? I know you've got kind of a group of people that you do it with
Oh,
all the
that
time.
that was not me. No, no,
Uh,
no, no, that wasn't me. So they had Luke G and Detroit Drew and
uh,
all these other people that were in there before me. Micro Mike was in there at the time, and there was just all kinds of really cool people that were big into YouTube that
mm-hmm.
said, "Hey, you used to do the podcasting thing, you're doing the YouTube thing. Why don't you come join us and we'll all pool our efforts together?"
Oh, that's
And we try
awesome.
to help other up and coming YouTubers, like a guy named Right or Wrong who comes out with content, but he's like 17 years old, a good kid, and he just joined. And so we're trying to grow and help other YouTubers, get up there, with
Yeah.
their following thing or their audience basically.
Yeah, that's awesome. Again, I've watched tons of their videos before. I didn't know exactly who started it. I just assumed that you, again, doing so many things that you
Oh,
somehow put
no,
that
no, no,
together.
no. No, I did their website for them. So I did that. And so everything on there I did. I came up with the logo, the new design. So I did that too. It's just anything I can do to help out.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
All right, so you go. Let's move on to the lion stuff. You were born in Bremerton, Washington.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You're from
Yep.
Seattle.
Naval base.
So how'd you get started as a Lions fan?
Well, this was a simple story. My dad was a Marine, and he was in Vietnam. He was towards the end of his tour, and my mom, I came right then, so she was at the naval base, and they were out in Washington State. And so I was born at Bremerton Naval Hospital out there. And then as soon as we were ready to travel, I mean, I don't think we stayed there very long at all. Of course, I don't remember any of that. I grew up in Michigan. I grew up in Muskegon, Michigan. And for me, it's just I grew up in Michigan. I was born there, but I don't remember any of it, to be honest. I've looked it up, and I've tried to learn a little bit about out there. And, it holds a little bit of a special place in my heart just because of the fact that I was born there. But I was raised here. So, of course, my dad would watch the Lions all the time. And I think for me, because when I first started watching, I can't remember. I think the coach was Monty Clark. And I just love the colors. That was the first thing. I know this kind of sounds stupid, but then it was Billy Sims, and the big one's always Barry Sanders. But I was hooked way before that. I was hooked with the Silver Rush and all that way back when. William Gay and those guys, Porsche, Spielman.
Kofer.
Mike Kofer. Oh, that's a name I remember. Yeah. See, it's been a long, long time now. Mel Gray. A lot of people think about the returnmen that we've had, but Mel Gray was special.
He was great
way back then. Steady Eddie Murray instead of Jason Hansen, and we had Jason Hansen. But I remember when Jason Hansen first started, and Eddie Murray has just left, and they're like, "Oh God, who's this kid?"
We took him in the second round.
Yeah.
Super high pick.
Yeah, super high pick, but super worth it if you look back at it.
Yeah,
Just super worth it, So yeah, I became enthralled with them, and I have been ever since. And I watched them in '91 when they went and crucified Dallas, and then they go get murdered by Washington, which really sucked. But it was ups and downs back then. We were always kind of contending for a playoff spot, and always really close in that era.
Yeah.
And we kind of got rid of Wayne Fontes because we were just kind of like the Red Wings. We'd always kind of make the playoffs or get close to the playoffs, but we'd never move any farther. And they thought, well, if we get rid of him, maybe we'll go farther. And guess what? We never did. It was a bad mistake.
Wayne Fontes had that habit of making comebacks late in the year. Like
he did.
Thanksgiving game, they'd string off a bunch of wings. I still remember Chris Berman on the Sunday night show calling him Rasputin, I think.
Yeah.
Comebacks.
He keeps coming back from the dead.
It was like year after year. Oh, he's going to get fired.
Yep.
A horrible start to the season, and they string off a whole bunch of victories.
Those players loved him, though. And then his Bobby Ross after that, and Barry Sanders just didn't like his whole offensive scheme and didn't like the way he was going to be used. And then Barry retires, and it's just a dark day.
Background.
Yeah, and Wayne Fontes was more of a player's coach. So it's more like a Caldwell to Patricia thing today.
That's true.
It's very close to that. And some players didn't like that, and Barry was one of them. And so Barry retired kind of the way he played. He just kind of sent in a little memo. I think it was in London or something at the time. And it's like, okay, well, here you go. Hand the ball off. Like he did it for all the touchdowns that he scored here.
Yeah, exactly.
And fans got bitter about it, but I mean, if you're him and you've been there for 10 years and this team just can't win, it's frustrating. And then that mirrors Calvin Johnson, I think, too.
Yeah,
with that same sentiment. It's just, my body's beat up now.
Yeah.
I mean, I could play another year, but for what purpose? What am I going to do? Lose again?
Exactly.
It's not appealing when you lose all the time.
Yeah, with me being born in '94, I haven't even seen one playoff win yet. So because that was back in '91.
Sorry, man.
So yeah, it's been a rough go for me, but that's what I'm hopeful for this year. There's always this year, right?
There's always next year.
Exactly.
I mean, the next year coming up.
Exactly. This year, next year.
Jimmy knows.
Hey, it's the same thing. It's been a long sentiment in my whole life, even though it's much shorter, but still, I've been saying that every year. It's like even you mentioned earlier, it's like every offseason you get hyped, all the players you brought in, all the players you drafted, you get excited, you think they're going to be great, you think they're going to be amazing, and it's just a huge letdown.
It's really not like that. Here's how I think it goes, Jimmy. I want you to see if you think this is true. So we'll go into free agency, and you're all stoked. There's these 3 or 4 players that you really want them to get, right? And it's like normally They don't. They get some other guy that you've kind of never heard of before, or you've heard of, but you don't think is that great, you know? So you're like, kind of disappointed. Well, then you start researching the guy, and you're thinking how he fits the team, and thinking, you know what? It ain't as bad as what I thought. When the season comes, you love this dude. Same thing with the draft. The draft is the same way. And this year we selected Jeffrey Okuda. I wanted Isaiah Simmons, and I've said it the whole time. I don't care, But now I love Okuda. I can't wait to see him because of blah blah blah. And we selected DeAndre Swift. Do I think that was the right pick? No way in hell. But guess what? We did it. So now I'm looking at DeAndre Swift and thinking, wow, him and Carrion in the backfield, this is going to be great. But I think we change our mind on the players instead of we fall in love with it right away. We picked Big V. I'm not even attempting that. I'm sorry. But we picked Big V. Who did I want? I wanted Jack Conklin. That's who I wanted.
Exactly.
But now we've got Big V, so now I have to look at him and say, okay, he's not him, but he's good enough. So how many times do you think that you've seen it where it's like in the years that you've watched that you've seen the players that you wanted only to have them pick somebody else and say, well, he's good enough, and then really get hyped by the end of the season. By the end of the preseason, you're like, oh, we're going to be really good.
Yeah.
Have you guys done that?
Yep.
Yeah, every year.
Every single year.
Sort of the eternal optimistic hope as a Lions fan. And if we weren't like that, we wouldn't be here.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But that does drive you crazy, though. And it's one of the things that I find funny about our community is that, even though we picked a guy that we didn't want, or we took a guy in free agency that we're like, really? We sit there and we stand behind those players when they come in. They're ours now. Once they put that, they sign the dotted line on the contract, they're now ours, and they're now loved by most of the fans unless they screw up, and then they're hated. But
Eric Ebron is a perfect example of that.
Eric Ebust, and there's a few, and the one that confuses me right now is Jared Davis. The rest of the league loves him, and we don't. Seriously. I mean, the rest of the league looks at Jared Davis and like, wow, that dude is athletic, and he's good, and he's a good linebacker. And we look at him like he over pursues. He's a terrible linebacker. He really can't cover anybody. You point him in one direction, he might hit the quarterback, but it's just a difference of how we see things in our bubble versus how everybody else sees things and how our players are used.
Exactly.
Speaking of guys you don't want, Antonio Brown just got announced that he's getting suspended for the first 8 games. So do we bring this guy in halfway through the season?
No. Okay, if you're going to create a culture and you're getting rid of players, right? Darius Slay you're getting rid of. You traded Quandre Diggs. You're getting rid of players that are vocal. Why do you sign Antonio Brown? Number one, we already have Kenny Galladay, maybe. And then we have Marvin Jones. We have Amendola. We have Cephas. Our wide receiver position is not, it doesn't lack depth. So if you're saying, well, we want to bring in a 1A or a guy that's just a superstar, Kenny Galladay led the league in touchdown catches last year. And Marvin Jones wasn't far off. I don't see the point of bringing somebody in that could upset the apple cart.
I'm 100%
especially at that position.
Yeah, I agree. That was my argument against Yannick Ngakoue, too. Same thing. Why would you try to bring in someone who has been that vocal and that negative towards the team and towards an owner and all that stuff? There's no reason to bring someone in like that into your locker room.
No, we've already had that.
Yeah. We discussed that on our interview together.
Yes, exactly.
So one point you just brought up is that Kenny Galladay led the league in touchdowns last year, and the NFL's top 100 players list recently came out, and not one single Lions player made the list. Not Kenny Galladay, not Matthew Stafford. Darius Slay did make it.
Now.
Yep, but he's obviously not a Lion anymore. So
Slay hasn't.
Yeah. So what is sorry about that. So what is your opinion on, like I said, especially Kenny Galladay leading the league in touchdowns, being an up and coming top wide receiver, not making the top 100 players list when there was some garbage wide receivers in my opinion, at that bottom tier?
It is the 3-12-1 record. If you notice, there's 3 teams that didn't have anybody on there, right? And that was Cincinnati, Washington, and Detroit. What did they pick in the draft? 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing is the national media the way they look at our players, look at the Madden ratings. You know, if you want to get upset, just look at that. You know, about our players and how the national perception of our team is. Because you have players leaving this team that say it's a terrible place to be, blah, blah, blah. And this isn't the first time. This is years and years of this happening.
Yep.
So nationally, I don't think they look at us as a decent team at all. And they do slight our players in the Pro Bowl. They do it in the top 100. I mean, I could make an argument for Matthew Stafford in the top 100. He was top 5 in every category. He was on his way to 5,000 yards. And they've also put people in there that only played 6 or 7 games that were in the top 100. So why not him? I think it's just a national perception of the Lions. The national media barely talks about them. And if they do, it's mostly negative. Unless you're talking about Nate Burleson or a former Lion in ESPN, you know, Orlovsky, somebody like that, you're mostly looking at negative comments, you know. So, and it's like they'll talk up Cleveland, which Cleveland isn't much better than we are, but they'll talk them up for 15 minutes, and you might get one little snippet of Lions news, and it's usually negative.
Exactly. Winning changes everything, and that's the biggest thing. If we were in the playoffs last year, we would be. I'm sure we would have 3 players on that list. Like I said, whether it be Galladay, Stafford, Ragnow, or anyone else.
Marvin Jones, even.
Exactly. Yeah, he was. Like I said, when you look at some of those bottom tier wide receivers that made the top 100, I think Allen Robinson made the list, and like Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay are both by far.
DJ Metcalf made the list.
Yeah, he's
seriously.
He's a good wide receiver, but he's not a top 100 player.
He didn't beat out Kenny Galladay.
No, not at all.
But it is what it is, man.
All right. Speaking of players that we like, give me one of your favorite under the radar players from the past.
From the past.
Ooh. Yeah.
This is a good one. What do you consider under the radar? Because I'm thinking of Willie Green, wide receiver.
Willie Green, touchdown machine.
Yep. Willie Green. I liked Johnny Morton. Benny Blades was a bigger name player, but I don't think he gets the recognition all time that he deserves. Man, there's so many of them, huh?
Yeah, Benny Blades was a force back there.
He was.
Power.
He was.
Intimidation.
And it's like there's so many players that I like. Robert Porsche, one of the best. Luther Ellis, underrated as a defensive tackle.
Yeah.
You know, in that vein. And one that I want to bring up that is almost a heartbreaking story is Eric Andelsic. He was a guard, and he was purported to be one of the strongest men in the NFL. And he got hit by a semi while he's mowing his lawn and killed.
Jeez.
So that was right in those 2-3 years in that area. Mike Utley also got paralyzed as a center.
Yeah.
So you had Kevin Glover on that same line. What kind of line would you have had if those guys stayed healthy or alive even?
Yeah, Lomas Brown was that time.
Oh yeah, Lomas Brown. But he's kind of recognized though, I think.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to go, I mean, I don't want to. Yeah, Corey Sledger. That's another guy.
Yeah,
fullback. I loved him, man. He was a little battering ram. You know, intense. I love the guy. You know.
Yeah, I love guys like that.
So there's all kinds of players that you go back and you think about it. And here's one, not too distant past. How about Willie Young, 7th round draft pick, ends up being a defensive end rotational almost starter for us, and then he goes to Chicago and starts for them as a 7th round draft pick.
Yeah, we usually don't hit on those real late round picks.
No, we don't.
We hit on Willie Young. I still remember his fishing
so
reel.
there's a few. Of course, for me, Dave Craig came over from Seattle. Little hands, Dave Craig, quarterback. They used to be with the Seahawks, and he was really good in Seattle because they ran the quarterback draw all the time. He killed every team that they used it on for some reason. I don't really know why, but he was a decent quarterback here too.
Yeah, when did he play?
He played in 94, I think, 93, 94, somewhere in there. He got hurt that year. I think Eric Kramer was the one that led us into the playoffs.
Yeah, he won the Cowboys game, the playoff game.
Yeah.
Dominant performance in that playoff game.
Yeah, and I never think of him as a dominant quarterback. I just don't.
Yeah. So where were you during that 91 playoff game?
What?
Where were you during that 91 playoff game against
Oh,
the
I was
Ravens?
home. I was home. Yeah, I didn't travel much then. I just didn't. In '94, I was in Minnesota, actually living in Minneapolis for a year for college. So it's like, yeah, all over the place. The Metrodome was like a block away, and I never went. I don't know
Wow.
why. I just never went. I'm scared of heights, by the way. So that's one of the things. So if I have to sit way up high, I'm that's not good for me.
Yeah.
Just
Have
very
you
out.
have you gone to any Lions games
Oh
before?
yeah, of course. Once Pistons games, Lions games, when things like that. But only in the Silverdome. I haven't been to Ford Field. It's a 3.5 hour drive for us here.
Mm,
So it's a ways. It's actually faster to get to Chicago from here.
Jeez, because you're on the western side of the state, right?
Yeah, we are in Muskegon, like right up against Lake Michigan.
Oh, geez, yeah, that's what I
Lake
thought.
Michigan's 10 minutes from my house.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Michigan is underappreciated, huge state.
Yeah, it is. I mean, people don't realize how far the north to the south of the state is.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you include the UP, it's crazy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
crazy long.
If you're trying to drive straight all the way through up to the Mackinac Bridge, it's a what I don't know 5-6 hour drive. It's long,
Yeah,
grueling drive.
that's a long drive. It might be longer than that if you're coming from the border or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, it's
But
crazy.
yeah, it's a fun state. There's just so much to see, and the trees and the beaches are beautiful,
Oh
and
yeah,
it's surrounded by water, which is really cool. And there's all kinds of inland lakes. It's a great place to be. It really is.
yeah. Almost no matter.
But then you have winter, and then everything sucks.
Yeah, I was gonna
Especially
say.
here. Holy
Oh,
cow!
no matter where you go, you almost got beaches on all around the state. But like you just said, you can only access them half the year. So.
Right? Yeah, you got 6 months to kind of check those out, and then that's it. Especially here because we have lake effect snow, so we average like 100 inches a year.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
crazy.
It is crazy.
All right. So we'll move on to a little bit more modern Lions topics now. So
Okay.
my question for you, I know we discussed this a little bit on our interview, but talking about the offseason and some of the pieces that the Lions have brought in, do you think that we've brought in enough pieces on defense to revamp this just totally bring it up to what Matt Patricia thinks it's going to be? Or do you think it's going to be about the same and we're just going to keep rushing three and not get any pressure on the quarterback?
I think that we don't. I think we're never done building. I think Bob Quinn's even said that
Mhm.
you're never done. But I think there's more pieces there than people realize there are.
Oh, yeah.
Deshaun Hand is someone people has really forgot about, and that guy, he put up he could be an elite defensive tackle, pass rushing defensive tackle, D end for us. You put him beside Danny Shelton, who I think could have a breakout year. I
Yeah.
think he's better. I think Danny Shelton could be better than the snacks we had last year for sure.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and that's a huge upgrade in this defense because you have to understand the defense. That defensive line is predicated on that position. You have to get pressure up front, but you have to stuff the run, and you have to take up some double teams so Trey Flowers can come in, the jack linebacker can go in and do his job, the third safety can blitz. The addition of Jaron Harmon is huge. People are going to underestimate this pickup, but it frees up Tracy Walker to actually be more of a strong safety, which is more in his wheelhouse. He's good at tackling. He's good at defending the run, getting down there and smoking some people. I really like that. It frees
Yeah.
up Will Harris to be more of who he is too.
Exactly.
Because Jaron Harmon's going to be your deep safety, your cover safety, and he assists the cornerbacks. So that's going to be better. I think our secondary is a lot better than people think it will be. It's going to take Akuda a little while to adjust, but that guy studies like crazy.
Yeah.
That guy is. If you want a guy that wants to improve, that is the guy, man. He does everything he can to mentally prepare for a game.
Mm-hmm.
So then you've got on the other side. God, why am I forgetting his name? Help me out, guys. The other corner, we got just Trufant. Yeah,
Desmond
Jesus, why did
Trufant.
I want to call him something else? We got Trufant, we got Justin Coleman in the slot, and then people forget about Awarie, but I think Awarie and Okuda is going to be a pairing for years to come.
Yeah.
And if you look at the secondary, we might be able to put on the field. That's good, and it gives those pass rushers a little bit of time to get there.
Exactly. Yeah,
The first year we had a lot of coverage sacks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you'll see that again, but that's also predicated on the nose tackle position too, because every position helps the other in this defense.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all equal balance, if you could say. And
We have a like I said, there's things that we were missing last year.
yeah.
So we're missing that big plugger in the middle, really. I mean, because Snacks is a shell of himself. We're missing anybody to cover tight ends and running backs out of the backfield, but now you have. Why am I forgetting names today? Jamie Collins.
Yep.
Who's a he is so good at covering out of the backfield, but he's also really good at getting to the quarterback. He's good at tackling, shutting down the run. That dude is a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
We didn't have that last year.
Exactly. What we really didn't have is depth at all on the defense, like you said, because once players started dropping like flies, we didn't really have anyone.
There's your problem. What happens if Danny Shelton opts out?
Mm-hmm.
Now, who do you have there? Hennessini? You don't have Atkins anymore. Kevin Strong?
Yeah, I don't even know who we put at nose right now.
That's what I'm telling you. The depth is not good.
Yeah.
It really isn't. But if all those pieces stay healthy and they all stay in the game, could be a really good defense.
Yeah.
People don't think that, but yeah, they judge it on last year, which we had a lot of players hurt last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's difficult for us. Do I think we could add another player? I don't think we should, but no, I really don't think we should.
Yeah, I agree. I know we discussed this on the interview with you and me, but I think that we could add Mike Daniels if he's willing to take a veteran minimum. I think he could be, if he's, again, stays healthy, that's the biggest thing. I think he could be maybe just a little bit of depth for that nose tackle position. But as you were...
He's more of a pass rushing DT than he is the space eater type that we need.
Yeah.
So if I was going to go and get somebody, I would get a backup for Danny Shelton. I think that's the one area we're really, really weak in.
Mm-hmm.
On the converse side, a backup position for Frank Ragnow. You
Yeah.
know, Bo Benchwell, and there's another guy that's a center, but that is a really big drop from center to your second in line. Our depth is really bad in certain areas.
What do you think about Nick Williams?
I like Nick Williams. I think he was more of, like I said, the pass rushing defensive tackle, although he can do both. I think that's why they got him. He can do both. He's a veteran. He's 30 years old already. I worry about him because he's only had one good season with the Bears, but I don't see him plugging a hole. You know what I'm saying? Like that big defensive tackle that we might need, like Snacks or somebody like that. I think he could slide into that role. And then you put Deshaun Hand on the other side like you would if Danny Shelton was there. But that's not a bad idea. If you're gonna replace him with somebody, that's who I would replace him with.
So do we bring Andre Fluellen back for the?
No, I think that he had so many contracts with the one. Remember, it was like him and okay, names are killing me today. Don Muhlbach. It's like 1 year deal. Well, with Fluellen, it was like, is he available still? Okay, let's just bring him in. Every time we needed somebody, we would bring Fluellen in, and he actually didn't do a bad job for us.
No, he was.
But it was a backup.
He was always available.
Yeah, that's the thing.
He was always ready for us.
Let me tell you something about why I'm worried about bringing free agents in. Okay, because we have people out there like Everson Griffin. We have, a bunch of players that have big names and all this stuff. Every penny that we spend on the salary cap this year takes away from next year. Let me explain why. At this point, the NFL has decided that $175 million is going to be the basement cap for next year. So that's the lowest it can go. But assuming all this happens over the 4 years and the COVID and all this stuff, we don't know what's going to happen with stadiums, with fans, and all the revenue that they bring in. It's all based on that salary cap number. So we have like $21-23 million left. That will break even for next year. If we held that money over, we'd be breaking even.
Yeah, Jimmy and I discussed that a little bit.
What I'm saying is this: we're so used to the salary cap increasing that we want to spend all the money we have. Detroit has been smart about it, and they've went with the theory, okay, we're going to hold over money every year, roll it over into the next year, which we've been doing. The Colts have done it really successfully. They have $95 million in cap space. Nice. And they just sign people to huge contracts, but it doesn't matter because they keep rolling over the money and not spending. They spend wisely, and then they just roll that money over and roll it over and roll it over. We're in a decent situation. Now, like the Saints, they're in a terrible situation. I mean, they're going to have to cut players left and right next year. And there are going to be teams that are way over the cap or that are under the cap now that are going to be way over the cap next year. Mm-hmm. It's an unprecedented situation where normally, we would go get somebody and it'd be easier to go get somebody. Can we kick the can down the road a little bit, restructure a contract here or there to accommodate another player? We could, but it would really jeopardize what we have been doing with the cap and what the Lions have been able to do. Do you remember the years of cap hell with Martin Mayhew and all those guys? And every single year we had to cut players and lose people and had to let Ndamukong Suh go because we just couldn't pay him as much or match a contract or this or that. We're not in that situation anymore.
Right.
And that's the reason we're not. We don't sign a lot of these big name free agents, and that's probably why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Back when most of our salary cap was tied up between 3 players and Sue, Johnson, and Stafford. So, yeah, Jimmy and I discussed that a little bit on our show about how they're kind of pushing the salary cap ahead a few years and kind of changing that up a little bit because obviously they don't, like you said, they don't really know exactly what's going to happen with the total revenue. They're just trying, but the salary cap for this year is staying the same. That's the one main thing.
Yeah, it's staying the same, but then next year it drops significantly. Yeah. And that's part of the reason. Bob Quinn was on his press conference. He said, well, we can't get the guys in for, physicals and stuff. We can do it on off campus, like at the hospital, Ford Hospital, whatever, but they can't bring in players to work them out. They have no idea what they're going to be like. To interview them via Zoom and interview them in person is 2 different things. Exactly. And when you're making that big of an investment in someone, you really want to work them out and see how they're doing and, put them through your drills with your coaches and your team and your team doctors so they can look at them and report back to you. They don't have that opportunity. So that's another reason that we're not signing anybody at this point.
Yeah, exactly. So
you talk to more Lions fans and insiders than maybe anybody. So tell us, how do you feel like we're going to do this year?
I got us at 8-8, and that's barring injury. Yeah,
a little optimistic.
I'm just being honest. I went through the whole list of the teams that we play and matched them up, and I had to. My formula for every year is I take every team and I think put them against our guys, and it's all on paper, but it's also from experience. And so then I look at the teams and I look at our the way we play, the way they play, our defense, their offense, our defense, and then they take that number that I come up with, and I subtract 2 games for the refs. And then, so I had them 10-6, and then they went back to 8-8 because the 2 games are going to get screwed out of this year. Because you always have to count that.
Right. Yeah,
Speaking of the refs are talking about their opt-out options right now. So if a bunch of refs opt out, what do you think that's going to do to the Lions season?
Oh, it won't matter. It's directed by the NFL. If it hasn't been directed by the NFL to do this to us, it wouldn't happen every single year. It wouldn't happen over and over again. Do you think the officials have changed in the last 40 years? Because I do. And it doesn't matter who the ref is. It seems like how do they always get it wrong for Detroit? It just doesn't make any sense to me. I would go through every single play, but them, the Calvin Johnson incident, the batted ball thing, the thing where the guy's knee was on the ground, Houston, Thanksgiving Day, we throw a flag and they reward us with a penalty and say, we can't look at it now because you threw the challenge flag, which if you're trying to get it right, that makes absolutely no sense. Calvin Johnson sitting on his butt in the end zone with the ball in the air, that is not a touchdown, folks. Seriously, there's stuff that I've seen over my time in Detroit that is so egregious. I can't even believe they saw the same thing that I did. And then when the league looks at it and hands us their customary apology, I tell them they can shove their apology right where the sun don't shine. Let's put it in a good way for your show. My show, I probably would have said something different, but
well, I appreciate that.
It's just, to me, no, it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters who the refs are. I don't. The one year we had I think it was the scab officials. Do you remember that year?
Yeah.
and
like
Green Bay
15.
got screwed in the end
Oh,
zone or something, and
yeah, the Fail
I can't
Mary
remember the whole thing.
Seahawks
They
game.
Yeah.
cried and whined so much, and they actually got the regular refs to come back. That's how much they hollered and whined and all this stuff, you know.
Hmm.
So when it happens to other teams, changes come. When it happens to our team, yeah, it's okay. And
Yeah.
I've lived with that my whole life. I do believe it's Detroit versus everybody. I totally believe in that. Um, it's too much to be coincidental if you're even looking at it logically. Look at statistics. There's no way this one team can have this many bad things happen. It's not logical.
Well, as
Yeah.
they say, you're not paranoid if they really are out to get you.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, we could go on forever about all this stuff and times that the Lions have been screwed. And I'm sure I could go on for a whole day, and you guys could go on for a couple more days
Yes,
of
exactly.
all the times that we've been screwed. So, yeah. So speaking of being screwed, what are your thoughts on Kenny Galladay and T.J. Hawkinson and Justin Coleman and Amani Ward and a few other people, a few other players who have tested positive for COVID-19? What do you think about that?
First, I want to clarify something because it's not that they've tested positive. It could be that they've been in contact with somebody who's tested
Yeah.
positive as well. They may not even have it,
Mm-hmm.
and they
The
have
only
to
guy
get
that's
quarantined.
confirmed positive is Justin Coleman.
Right, and and he says he feels great,
Yeah.
that he's asymptomatic. And
Mhm.
and I don't know, I'm not around him every day, thank God, because I'm just kidding. But you know what I'm saying? I think this is good that we're getting this many out of the way right away. That means some of the testing is working.
Mhm.
That means the protocol is working. I'd be more scared if we had nobody,
Yeah.
to be honest about it, because that means while we think we're safe, are we really? And then to have it happen in the middle of the season where all of our players are just on this list. I'd rather have it now and learn from it rather
Mhm.
than have it in the end. Is it going to hurt us? Yes, it's going to hurt us because we're losing more valuable time. If you're going to start training camp really soon, I hope these guys can get back on the field before that happens. If
Mhm.
we lose them for a length of time or we keep losing more players, that hurts us because then we're not on the field. We're not getting reps. We're not getting ready for the season. We're not getting conditioning that we need. And if they have to do it on their own, great. But I think it's better in the program that they're set up for, with the team. But
Yeah.
I think that right now this is a good thing.
Yeah. The Lions have the most players who are on their COVID list than any other team. So I don't know like if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I do agree with you. And again, we've all talked about this before that it's good to hopefully build up an immunity or just catch it before the season. Again, that way you can build up some type of immunity and hopefully you won't catch it again. We still no one really knows if you can fully catch it again yet or not, but
But that's not the only thing, though. It's to know that your protocols in place are catching something.
yeah. That's
You
the
know,
biggest
you don't
thing.
want to set a mouse trap and then never catch a mouse.
Exactly. You want to be able to find
Because
it.
then what you're doing isn't right. At
Mhm.
least we know that what we're doing is working.
Exactly.
We are catching the problem. We are quarantining. We are doing the right thing. And what do you think, Jimmy? You would know more about this than both of us up here combined. So
About what?
about the COVID testing and the the one positive test and the rest of the players that are on that list right now. Do you feel like it's a situation where they're catching it and the protocol's working, or how do you see this?
Yeah, I think their protocols are good. Listening to the Bob Quinn press conference, it's clear that they have huge attention to detail. They've undertaken so many measures in the off season to be on top of this. So I fully trust the Lions medical staff to be on top of all the protocols and testing procedures.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you think it's better to have all these players on the list now, at first than later?
Yeah, I think it helps improve the chances we're going to have a good season. It possibly decreases the chances we're going to have positive tests during the regular season.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my thought as well. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So final question for you, Jim, is kind of involving the whole COVID thing, the MLB has canceled a few games. They canceled another one for tonight, and they've already canceled, I believe it was 2, maybe more. I might be wrong in the last few days because so many players and coaches keep testing positive. Do you think it's a possibility that they could actually cancel NFL games this season or no?
It is possible, but Major League Baseball has done something completely different than the NFL. See, they tested a lot in the beginning, Major League Baseball did, and then they laxed off when they started playing. I mean, the first few games, when they first got there and everything, they were testing good and all this, and then they didn't continue with it. They did it for 14 days. I think that's what it was or whatever, and then they kind of thought, okay, well, everything's good, so we're going to relax on our standards and stuff. And I think that the NFL's not going to do that. At least I hope not. At least I hope that they take a page out of they look at what the MLB is doing right now and what's happening to them, and they understand that the testing is important to test more often and to be able to do the test correctly so that they avoid the false positives and false negatives that they sometimes come up with the test. I think that's the most dangerous thing about this whole thing. Thinking that you don't have it and you're out there going, yay, I don't have it, blah, blah, blah. Justin Coleman, I think, didn't he test negative the day before and then tested positive the next day?
I'm not sure.
I believe that's the case, and he's even saying, I don't even know if this is the right test, so they have to test him again. What if it comes up negative? Is that one false positive, or is that him testing positive? That is a difficult thing about this testing protocol, is that you're getting some false positives and false negatives. The false negatives are worse because of the fact that those people are thinking they're fine and they're infecting other people. in your facility, your teammates.
You got to realize these tests are qualitative tests, not quantitative tests, which means they're either positive or negative. We don't know exactly how many virus particles that the test got a hold of. So it's possible you can flip back between negative and positive, just depending on how good of a sample you got.
Exactly, and that's a problem. And so I think what we have to do is we have to. It's hard to do, but we have to come up with some sort of standard, and I think that's something that the NFL could do, and more regular testing, and it's all education and knowledge and learning about what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. Look at other players, look at other teams, look at other, leagues, see what they're doing, see where they failed, and then fix it. As we go forward, we're going to learn more. And as we learn more, we'll be able to do better and better and better. And pretty soon we'll find a vaccine and this will go away at some point. At some point, this is going to go away.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody agrees with that.
Yeah.
One way or the other. Yep.
Whether it's this year or next year.
It's not good, man. I see what you did there.
Let's cross our fingers we get through this NFL season at least. So
Yeah.
We'll get you out of here with this last question. We've both had multiple decades as Lions fans. So what's your favorite Lions memory?
Favorite Lions memory? Ooh. God, that's a tough one. But it has to be the win in Dallas.
Yeah.
It has to be the playoff win over Dallas.
The one thing I didn't witness.
Because the thing is, in retrospect, if I'm remembering this correctly, I don't think we were favored in that game.
Probably
It was a
not.
home game for us.
But I don't think we
I
were
don't know if
favored in it.
You're right. We might. I don't know.
It was close anyway, but we stomped on them.
It was crazy.
That wasn't
Dominated.
expected.
Yeah.
At all.
Right.
Because think of us today getting in the playoffs. We play somebody like New England or somebody, I know that can't happen, but I'm just saying that caliber of team right away, and we just put our foot on their throat, If we had went on and faced anyone else but Washington, because they were so good that year,
They were really good.
I think we were making history that year. But of course, we're the Lions, and we run into the team that is. It was just a terrible team for us to play.
Yeah.
They ran the ball really well. They kept the offense off the field. Their defense was really good. They bottled up Barry Sanders, which was difficult to do. They just had an answer for everything we did. We had no answers for them. But that would be my favorite, is the Dallas game where we beat the crap out of Dallas.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you. All right. Well, thanks for coming on our show.
Yeah, we
No,
really,
I had a blast, man.
awesome. We
Do you have
appreciate
anything you
you.
want to promote?
Oh, I've got a few things going on. I got an shoot. I even do a hockey show. So on at 3 o'clock tomorrow, we have the Offside show, and that will be on my channel. Also on my YouTube channel is called the Who's in the Room series, and Jimmy's been on it, and Jordan's been on it, and I've had a bunch of other fun people on, Jeremy Reisman, and a bunch of other guys on there, and we've had a good time getting to know everybody. So you can check out that series on my channel. DSA Roundtable is going to be next Tuesday and Thursday at 8 o'clock. And then we have a show about the Pistons called Above the Rim. I'm not sure whose channel it is on. Check the DSA for your listening. I think it's at 7 o'clock tomorrow night.
Nice.
So that's what's going on in my world, which is quite a bit.
Yeah, you're a very busy man. Like I said, we appreciate you taking out the time and coming down here
Thank
to
you.
spend the time with us. All right, well, that's it. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you again next time.